Hope you guys are doing great. Today is day one of our IDO. What's up? So, as you may all have known, I was struck by COVID a few days ago. I just got back my voice. It's great to be back. Pretty sure all you guys that know me have been worried, but I'm fine. So, let's see what's going on right now. Let's bring on. We're going to have an exciting panel today. We have Crypto Unicorns, the CEO, and Evan, our CEO, is going to do an AMA with him. It's going to be really interesting.
I got you.
Yo.
Hey, Aaron. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
It's a bit tiring, but it's good. It's good. I'm sure you've gone through all of this before as well, so learning from the experts here.
Yeah, definitely. I guess you're 13 hours into a 5-day sell, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to be a very tiring week. I feel for you.
Yes. The funny thing was, up until a week ago, we had not decided to do like a launch party or anything like that. And so last minute, we're all putting these things together, and it was just like, it was good because the turnout was amazing. Like everyone just showed up. I don't know if we should probably even go live with this, but the turnout was outstanding. The amount of business connections that all want to work with us to grow the industry, the play to earn industry, is just amazing. And we signed some MOUs last night, trying to get some of the major partners on board, like BitCup in Thailand's huge. So we signed with them, and a bunch of other partners. Essentially, it's the move to getting traditional companies that are typically in, like, I even call it like Web 1. They're, because it's developing countries, right? So they're not even at Web 1 right now, and they want to move into, like, how can employees benefit from play to earn? And so we're signing these partners that are bringing on 50, 70,000 scholars. They're just going to roll this across all of their platforms. So really interesting. I think we're even live right now. Are we already live? Oh, okay. Well, it's good that it's out there. So yeah, so we're making that transition, and it's been a roller coaster. I mean, we've seen the guild as kind of our core community support, and now we're starting to build out that ecosystem around it. But I mean, crypto unicorns. I must say, I feel like internally within YGGC, I've just been promoting crypto unicorns constantly. Like, I'm the expert in crypto unicorns. I'm the biggest fan, really. Love what you're doing with the game, and it's amazing to see the path between our two companies. I think crypto unicorns was one of our first investments, and it was one of the first investments that I aped in on as well. So I saw what you guys were doing, and I was just like, this is the game for us, and we need to go heavy into it. But I would love to hear, because even dealing with the press last night at the launch event, they were, asking a bunch of questions around guilds and are they evil? And it's like, I just kept thinking, are we the shadow corns of like play to earn? Like, I don't know. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Like, where do you see guilds fitting into crypto unicorns?
Definitely. I mean, I think guilds are going to end up looking a lot like a hybrid between games publishers and kind of esports team managers. I think that's probably the end state. As for our guild's evil, I mean, the reality is we haven't yet seen a sustainable game economy in the space yet. We just haven't. And so it's going to be interesting to see in kind of hopefully the next generation of titles in the space, whether or not I think the first game to develop a truly kind of sustainable economy will have room for guilds in it. And again, I think as they continue to evolve with the space, there's plenty of paths to successful, sustainable partnerships with guilds, for sure. We've taken an approach with our title of focusing on having a lot of economic depth, which is kind of where we're starting, and then layering a ton of gameplay depth on top of that over time. And the hope is that the kind of combination of both of those does lead to a sustainable path. And I've kind of said this from the beginning, like, it's totally fine for a group of whale players to pay a group of grinders for their time, right? But that's a bit different than whales, basically handing out assets to produce yield. It's more like whales want to play the game. I want the Charizard, and I'll buy it from you. And you spend a ton of time getting that, right?
Yeah.
And I see guilds as being, able to kind of aggregate the grinders, if you will, and give them a path forward in the game in really interesting and compelling ways. But yeah, the space is very early. I think both game developers and guilds are going to have to continue to evolve with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because like one of the things that we continue to hear from the press is like games like Crypto Unicorns, very successful. NFTs have taken off in terms of price, and for the average player within Southeast Asia, it's just out of reach, right? In terms of trying to get the land necessary as well as the unicorns, it's just it creates such a large barrier, and so that's why we're promoting the fact that, listen, we've aped in on crypto unicorns, we've got all these amazing assets, and we're really excited to roll this out to Southeast Asia, because we know that these players are going to be excited about it. Your gameplay is amazing. I love the depth of play that you guys have. I've been talking about it on almost every AMA. I'm supposed to be promoting like YGGC, but it's just like they always get to a question of like, what game are you really confident on? It's like crypto unicorns, 100%. But another question that we're coming around to right now since we've launched is, and given the fact that our companies pretty much launched at the same time, and you're a few months ahead of us actually. I would love to hear what your experience has or was for Copper launch, for example. Were there any surprises? Did it go as planned? I've never heard that part. I've listened, I think, to every AMA you've ever done, but I haven't heard the Copper launch story.
Yeah, I mean, Copper launch was interesting for us. I mean, it was definitely incredibly successful on our side. I mean, we did a little over 14 million in 3 days on Polygon. And that was probably the biggest question. Was we'd seen a lot of successful Copper launches on ETH mainnet, but prior to ours, there hadn't been many on Polygon. So that was a bit of a test and experiment, and it worked out well. It really worked out well for us. I think the mechanism around these liquidity kind of bootstrap pools, which is what Copper launch leverages, is a really fascinating way to float a token and kind of allow the community and the public to determine its price over that period of time. And so, I keep telling people I've been very consistent in underestimating the demand for our project. And I think that's just been as an entrepreneur, I've not had a lot of success until crypto unicorns. And so it's kind of my first rocket ship. And no, I mean, the Copper launch team were incredible throughout the process. And the setup was easy relative to other things in the space. So I have nothing but good things to say about the platform. And I really believe in the mechanism. I think it's a really novel way to find price discovery in a fair manner relative to some of the other systems that can get gamed or really give bots in particular an upper hand over retail, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, your RBW token has done really well on Balancer as well. Do you have any future plans to list on the major exchanges?
We do. None that I can specifically talk about yet, but yes, in motion for sure.
Okay, looking forward to it. Okay, I'm sure many others are. Cool. I guess the other thing that we did last night was we signed an MOU with an accelerator, mainly because we've expanded into now 4 markets: Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, as well as Indonesia, and we're moving on to 3 more markets by the end of this year. And we get this question from the locals here is, okay, you've got an office, what are you looking for? And we're like, well, we want that line of communication into the developer community. And we just haven't seen the quality of games that we're looking for from Thailand. And we've struggled with this one. The players are tremendous. The players are extremely skillful. They're in terms of YGGC, they're probably they are the top earners by country. So they're very successful in that regard, but the developers haven't gotten the tokenomics right. And so we've signed this agreement to do an accelerator program here to work more closely with developers. Can you take us through maybe for the developers that are listening right now, maybe the path that you chose for your tokenomics? How did you want to structure it in the beginning, and then how did it evolve and change throughout the years or months of development?
The $1 billion question right here. Yeah. It's tough because the space is so new that, again, we really haven't seen a successful, sustainable game economy, right? Because we haven't had multiple years of being able to kind of look at what's worked and what hasn't. I think we've seen some early experiments in the space begin to unravel. And as you know, as game developers, we just looked at that and said, okay, well, what's happening in these economies, and how can we potentially avoid some of the pitfalls? And you need to be very careful about inflating your utility token linearly with new DAO. Like, that's just something that you don't want to do, because it will just automatically mean that you're creating a delta between your mint and your burn, and ultimately that token is just going to eventually collapse, right? I think there's a lot of different layers to unpack there. I would start with, you gotta have a fun game loop. Nothing has changed about building games, and the only reason people will purchase and hold tokens is to play something that they enjoy. And so you really have to start with that. It has to begin with that. And then honestly, when looking at designing the tokenomics for our utility token, again, it was taking best practices from free to play. Like, when you're balancing a free to play economy, you want a lot of levers, a lot of sinks, and a lot of sources. And so that was actually one of the reasons we started with kind of a farm sim, is it gave us, every single building is its own system, right? It has depth, and you have to invest materials and resources to upgrade it and all of that kind of stuff. So it gave us like a really solid starting foundation, where we just had more utility for the token to begin with than just purely a breeding sink, which I think is where many games today are running into trouble. They just don't have enough use cases for that utility token to get around the inevitable problem that comes when you get a bunch of DAO into the game. The government's token, I think, is a little different. I honestly looked around kind of at the wider crypto space and looked at a lot of DeFi tokens to see which ones had built any kind of a sustainable system into their design. And I have always been a huge fan of Curve and Convex, kind of the entire ecosystem around that token, and the kind of VE token economics. And so in some ways, RBW and how we do governance is set up similarly. It's not identical, but it is set up similarly to that governance system. And then, one thing that we did do that's different than other games that I've seen is our governance token actually has very high utility in the game itself, in addition to our utility token. So our governance token is effectively the underlying unit of exchange within our economy. And that gave the governance token like further utility and use. And when you match that with the staking system, which incentivizes you to stake longer to earn more and to have an outsized vote in governance and all this kind of stuff. Again, I won't claim to have come up with that. It's very similar to Curve, which I think is one of the most successful, if not the most successful project in DeFi. And has proven it can hold value into a token because of the way it was structured and kind of set up. I think the complexity comes in taking that and layering it back into a game in a way that's, again, going to be sustainable over the long term. Every game is very different. So it's cool to hear that you guys are starting kind of an accelerator, because you really do have to get way in the weeds to understand the specifics on a per game basis, right? It's hard to kind of say something broad or general that's going to be helpful.
Yeah. Just like you say, I mean, there's a few things. Is that core game loop, right? Being fun. I know you've said in previous AMAs, you didn't think that Dark Forest was really fun, but believe me, my kids loved it. I loved it. All of our friends were just collecting, from the Dark Forest, the Unum, and every day we would all, sign in. Did you collect yet? Did you collect? And I know that part was maybe from a developer perspective boring, but I really feel like that was just the beginning of many great things to come. So it was like you're collecting something, you're farming something because something great is going to come. And um, I really enjoyed that mechanism, having the shadow corns being introduced and the loot boxes, and it was like a bit of the story just kept, you know, the revealing itself over the course of those weeks. And the community, you have such a great community. um Sparkly Unicorn, thank you very much for getting me into your Discord. I just couldn't get in. So uh she pressed the button and got me in, so thank you so much. But yeah, I really think your game loop and the way you've evolved it, and the storyline behind it of being, you know, the concept of the player is here thinking, oh, we're just harvesting, you know, unum from the dark forest, and then all of a sudden in Act 2, you know, shadow corns will come out and be like, you've just pillaged from us, you know, now it's wartime. I just love that concept. And I mean, even it came up during this launch where we are, you know, you've been so generous to say that you'll be providing RBW to those who stake. And just having that coin and the involvement, then we said, okay, let's start giving away some NFTs. And internally, they were like, okay, let's give away shadow corn eggs. And I was like, no, we need those, And everyone's like, no, just give away, it's okay, the community will love it. And I was like, do you understand where this game is going? We need the shadow corns. And then I was like, we're going to have to sacrifice all, you know, some of our NFTs, you know, in order to build them up. And they were like, we nobody had a clue about this. So I just love the fact of how the game is evolving over time, and the depth of the story that you're developing from it. The utility of the token is absolutely, we're perfectly aligned on as well. We've now started to look at, you know, okay, we've got our governance token, we've got our guild mechanism, and that's supporting the core economy. But we're also thinking about, you know, here we are in Southeast Asia, bringing on all these new players to the metaverse, and we can get them past that state of creating MetaMasks and playing games and learning the basics about play to earn. But then it's really fascinating, because right after that, once they start earning, you know, $500,000 a month, they start buying things, right? They start buying physical goods, and their friends come on board and go, whoa, where did you get all this cash? And then all of a sudden they start buying NFTs. And at that point, they almost say, like, wait a minute, why do I need a guild? I can just buy my own NFTs. And we actually support this, and we're saying, okay, so this is just like in gaming, there's the player's path, right? And you're going to, you know, say, well, where are we going to address that player? Where can we continue to add value to that player and their path through the metaverse? And so now we're starting to develop this ecosystem all around it, leveraging our governance token, similar to what you're doing with RBW, having it part of your burn mechanism for breeding and others. So yeah, it's really interesting how the governance token is evolving to be really a utility token. I know we're getting short on time here, but I'd love to get your perspective. I think I know it already from previous AMAs, but in terms of overall general trends going forward, and I want to put you like 5 years ahead. I know it's difficult to even predict, given that, you know, we're all blazing our own path right now into this metaverse, and I would love to get your general thoughts about where are we going to be 5 years from now. Where do you think crypto unicorns will be from Web 2 to a Web 3 perspective. I'd love to get those insights from you.
5 years down the road.
I know. That's like saying, where are we going to be like 50 to 100 years from now? Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my hope in that space of time is that the underlying kind of crypto blockchain world basically gives everybody on the planet a wallet, right? Like that's the key, right? And so assuming that kind of happens, I would hope that Web3 gaming has at that point really reached the masses. I mean, it took mobile gaming about a decade. That was a completely new compute platform, right? You had to get all that hardware distributed. And at this point, all that hardware is out there and continues to get better and better and better. And so I actually think it will take less time. I think it will still take many years, but I think 5 years is a pretty good, I think is a pretty good bet that we've broken out into the mainstream and are kind of hitting that holy grail of mass adoption, right? And I think that the major difference is that I've said this before, but I really do believe that Web3 gaming eats the vast majority of free-to-play gaming. I just don't understand why that doesn't get completely reimagined in this new paradigm, right? Where you have this 100 billion a year industry in which usually less than 5% of the players actually spend any money in any of those games, and they have zero ownership over anything or any ability to control or help govern or help shift or help guide. And again, I look at that and I'm like, 100 billion a year and you don't own anything, and you can't, the game developer can just shut down a server and all your shit's gone. You look at like mod communities, look at, the success of Minecraft, the success of Roblox. When you involve the player base, you actually allow them to, build and help you grow. And I just think it's going to fundamentally reshape the way that we build games. But it's brutal. It's very hard. And we're at the very beginning of it. So we're making a lot of mistakes every single day and just kind of trying to survive. So 5 years, I hope the kind of mass adoption has really occurred. And this is just typical. It's like everybody buying Pokemon cards, right? It's like you didn't own the shit that you were buying in those games all those years, Dad. I mean, like, yeah, it was crazy. And now, you're trading skins and you're grinding out runes and shit. I mean, I think it will end up, at the very least, eating a huge chunk of free to play in the next 5 years.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, but that's the really cool thing about this. I was extremely skeptical when getting into play to earn. And again, I come from like traditional gaming background, EA, PopCap, right, Unity, and I was just like, I didn't really understand it, and that was the point where, and this is why our offices throughout the Southeast Asia are so important, is because they're that friend, that gets you, moving forward into this metaverse, like getting you set up with your MetaMask. And asking those questions, really, why do I need this MetaMask? I was going through it last night at the launch party. Like, so many people are coming to me going, so wait a minute, what is MetaMask and why do I need it and how do I get it? And then I was just like, wow, like the mass adoption definitely needs to take place. Those fundamental blocks need to be there in order to really get people on board. And that's why our community leaders are so important in YGGC. But yes,
that's phenomenal, right? Like every person that has created their first MetaMask to play crypto unicorns, I'm super fucking pumped about, right? Because I'm like, we just onboarded somebody into this space, and win, lose, or draw over the next few years with this game, this first game, I find it super inspiring, right? Because it becomes this like gateway to the entire space, right? And so that's incredibly exciting to hear that you guys are helping people over that first hump of self-custody, because that's a very difficult thing to really understand and get used to and get familiar with. And obviously there's a lot of scams, and it's scary, I mean, banks are getting robbed, people are getting held up. I mean, it really is the wild, wild west. That's is a very apt metaphor for where we're at. So having kind of a friendly group that can help you on ramp into that space and watch out for the scams and the bad actors, it's great, and it is needed. And that's why I kind of say, like, this hybrid esports publisher being kind of the evolution for, I think, a lot of guilds in the space is really very interesting, and I think applicable here, because there is a much greater barrier, setting aside asset prices, which I think will naturally start to come down as we hit mass market. There's still this barrier to entry into the space generally, and you guys are well positioned to, I think, help people ramp in and overcome some of that fear.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's all because of developers like yourself that really create amazing games that have such high interest that drive people into the space, right? So, I mean, we can be the onboarding, but once they get on board, we need high quality game content such as Crypto Unicorns to really grab their attention and keep them there for the long haul.
Sure.
I mean, most of our scholars are playing at least 2 to 3 hours per day, 6 days a week, and this is just something. And we're now getting requests for even players that say they want to play up to 8 hours a day. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, to be honest with you. And but
yeah, I would tend to agree on that. Some of our battle loops you'll be able to grind probably as much as you want, but we kind of intentionally designed the farm sim such that you wouldn't have to play it constantly, and accept that people play multiple types of games, right? So, yeah, that's very interesting though.
But I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we're a bit over. Again, I'm a huge fan, and thank you so much for your support. I know we're actively in these groups together, but we see Crypto Unicorns as one of the top games for play to earn moving forward, and we're heavily invested. We're going to continue to promote this into all of our new markets, and we're really excited for the next phase and the next gaming loops that come out. But again, thank you.
I really appreciate the support, and yeah, it's going to be an exciting few months for sure as we continue to layer on new features and I just cannot wait for people to see some of the Shadowcorn art. I think that's going to be really exciting. We get those hatch. We start Act 2. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some exciting events planned. So,
looking forward to it. Thank you. Okay. Well, take care. And until Act 2, we'll see you soon.
Right. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Wow.